I think that there's an ongoing list, so we can either have the
Add that to the
secretary-
list, please.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Thank you, Senator Carter. If you want to,
Hey, good afternoon. I'm Stacy McPherson. I was not prepared to talk today, so I brought nothing. But as a previous DCFS worker myself, not in this Baton Rouge region, it's a different region, in Alexandria, I recently left the end of July, and I'm going to cry and try not to cry, because that was probably the hardest decision I ever made in regards to my career. You know, I've watched these interviews, I've watched these legislative sessions, and about how workers need to care about these kids, and these children need to be put first. And I know for 6 years that these children and these families were my life. And when I say my life, it took precedence over my own children. It took precedence over my mother, who was sick and is now deceased, and I can't get any of that time back with my kids or my mother, because I devoted myself to this job 24/7. And Renda Hodnett and Marquita Walters know this. I've emailed them. I have stated on numerous occasions the concerns in the region that I was in, the toxicity in these work environments that gave not just myself but coworkers extreme anxiety, the symptoms of almost PTSD of having to return to these offices the next day or on a Monday. I know the retaliation that I'm going to face from sitting here right now. I know that it's coming. I know what they're thinking as I'm sitting here putting all of this out here, but these are children. These are children that cannot speak for themselves. They can't fight for themselves. It's like the only advocate they have are these workers, the workers that care. I'm not even going to say it's all of them. There's a handful of workers that truly put their heart and soul into what they do in this job every day, every night. I've worked 19 hours a day, numerous days a week, and I don't get time and a half for that. You know, I get off at 4 and I get K time. I had tons of K time when I left because I didn't take off, because I knew the work that was there that had to be done. I knew the work that was going to be there if I left and came back in 3 or 4 days. My children needed me. My foster parents needed me. My families needed me. I really feel like in my heart that I did everything for them that I could do. I have continued. As I sit here today, I am not working. I have not worked since I left DCFS, and I will tell you, I made over $43,000 a year after 6 years of being there. The money is not the issue. The 5 people that left this one office as foster care workers within the last 5 weeks, 5 workers left. 20 years, 5 years, 6 years, 8 years, they've been there. None of it was money. Not one reason for any individual that left. It is the toxicity of the work environment. That's what it is.
Talk a little bit more about the toxicity.
We knew that it was kind of a, I guess, underlying, non-official, you do what you're told to do. You don't go against the system. You don't state your concerns, because if you do that, you get the retaliation of just the, just being, everything's going to be your fault. They want you to go with the flow. They want to say, this is what you do, and this is and this is how you do it, and you just do it.
Who's they?
Supervisors, management, directors. It's even been as far up. I mean, I've went to the top. I've went to the top over and over and over, and there's been nothing. I went in 2020 with a host of people and met with Ms. Hodnett and Ms. Walters, numerous just dire concerns that were put in front of them by numerous individuals. That was 2.5 years ago. You know, so for me to sit here as a previous worker and hear that, you know, we've taken care of concerns, they haven't been taken care of. We're in a worse place now when I left in July than we were in 2020. There were concerns that were brought to their attention in 2018, and when I say there, it's supervisors up, in 2018. So here we are at the end of 2022, and we're in a worse position than we were in 2018, than we were in 2020. There's nothing that's getting better. It's not even, so to speak, the caseloads. During my 6 years there, I carried almost 30 cases in a foster care caseload while I was helping out with investigations due to backlogs. So I probably had over 30 cases between two programs. I wasn't stressed out. I had a good supervisor. I had a good manager at that time. It was during the 6 years of my lowest caseload that I got put on medication, that I was in and out of a doctor, because I felt like I had the target on my back, so to speak, because I spoke up and I stated my concerns and I fought for my kids. And fighting for my kids, I've had cases taken away from me that I had for probably 2 years because I was too attached, and that was the exact words that I was told by a manager, that I'm too attached. 3 very, very small children that I was the only consistency in 2 years that those children had were given to a whole nother parish and region, because I was too attached to these children.
So in the 5 workers that basically had a high-level meeting, what were the main talking points that were brought out that would help the committee to understand the plight of some of the workers in a toxic work environment?
It was discussed that there were workers that we weren't allowed to go in other workers' offices or communicate with other workers. The division is extremely rough, where workers were hiding under coworkers' desk because a supervisor or manager would come in, so they would have to hide because there would be retaliation for that. You would get in trouble for that, for communicating at all. There was a fatality that was addressed during that meeting in great detail of how that child passed away, an infant. There were foster parents who talked about kind of the same things that she's discussed, that you know, we have to provide all of this stuff to DCFS to be able to take care of a child. You know, they're willing and they're able and they want to love on these kids, and foster parents leave when their good worker walks out the door. You know, they don't want, sometimes they won't take cases unless they know who the caseworker is, because they know who the good workers are and who's not. You know, I've had foster parents who have closed their homes because they're kind of dealing with the same things that she has of, they speak up for the children and they try to advocate and fight for them, and they're retaliated against. So kids don't get put in their home and they don't get phone calls. And it seems like the more all of these meetings come out, the more it's across the whole state of Louisiana. I can only speak for the 2 parishes that I worked in, but it was the same exact circumstances, the same exact environment, that led me to put in a 2-week notice and walk out the door. And I was told in the midst of my 2 weeks that I was to have no contact with my children, no contact with my foster parents, and no contact with my biological parents at all. At that time, I was still an employee at DCFS. My teenagers that I've been their only stability for 2 years were told they're not allowed to talk to me. They can't call me. I can't talk to them. No communication has been done with me or any of my foster children that I had while I was there. All of these children I had for a year and a half or more. And that, you know, if we're going to talk about what's in the best interest of our foster children, then let's talk about what's in their best interest. We're pulling their stability. We're pulling the ones that love them and care about them when their parents are not in the capacity to be able to do that. But we can't go in an office and talk about the fun things we did with our foster child or how much we care about this child, because we risk that whole case being pulled away from us. So we just kind of sit in our office and we do our work, and we just hope to make it through that one day, because every day is excruciating. It's toxic. It's extremely toxic, and I don't know any other words to say for that.
Well, we appreciate you coming here, and Dr. Tolliver kind of left us with some to-dos to look at, and you left us also we have some questions from the committee members. But as you conclude, kind of my questioning with you is, any advice you would tell us to dig a little deeper, do a little bit more research, do some things, because any action plans you would give us from your years of experience and your colleagues who left?
I think that any worker in any given DCFS office needs to be talked to individually. There's a lot of workers, and I kind of feel like, because I'm not there, that I have to speak for my coworkers that I left behind that are struggling, that they're trying to do their job. They're trying to just hold on with that last little string before they walk out the door, because it's coming. There's other workers that are just a hair away from going out the door. And it's not because of money. It's because of supervisors and management and directors, and they feel like they're not being listened to. They feel like they're not important, that it's documentation, and it's doing everything but what's in the best interest of a child. So they're scared to talk, but that would be my suggestion, is that somebody outside of from the top to the bottom needs to go, because they're very untrusting. It's hard to sit here. I've been where they are. I've been in that position where I wanted so bad to just scream that this is what's going on, but you can't do it because you're risking your career in doing that.
We appreciate it, and it was a pleasure for us to visit you. Senator McMahon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. McPherson, excuse me. I really appreciate your testimony today. It's helpful to hear from. I think you might be the first recently employed, caseworker that has come and given input, and I've found it to be very valuable. I have a dear friend of mine who is a constituent who was in your position for many, many years, and she has given me stories, and it's very consistent with your experience, and that is, it's not necessarily about the money or the workload. It was the support or lack of support that she was not getting from management. She walks dogs now, and while she finds it to be much less stressful than the job that she held at DCFS, it's not nearly as rewarding. And she said if it ever changes, she would seriously consider going back, but she still keeps in touch. And so I've gotten some input from her, and it's, again, very similar to what you're saying. And Doctor, I appreciate your testimony as well. There seems to be a theme of retaliation that we have heard consistently when we're discussing foster care, or the experiences that you've had. That's something that's very I don't know, it irks me, and I hope that's not the case. Where there's smoke, there's fire, and we've just heard it from so many different individuals that I find it unfortunate, but yet probably accurate. Is it your opinion that the two children that were transferred because of your alleged or supposed attachment to them, do you believe that was based off of, that was some sort of retaliatory action? Or
I do.
Can you speak to that case a little bit? I was trying to follow you, but
I do. They've been adopted, but I don't want to give specifics.
You know, and don't, please,
But they-
obviously, don't reveal anything you
I
can't,
mean,
but
they were very young, six, 7, and under, 3 of them.
Mhm.
And parents incarcerated, so they have no contact with them, no other family members. So they were in a foster home, you know, but due to the severity of how, with 2 of those children, some of the things, the reasons that they were in foster care, I had to spend a lot of time with them, with doctor's appointments and different things. And so we just kind of, you just kind of get a bond with these kids, especially when you know that they don't have anybody else. They don't have family visits. They don't have visits with the parents or grandparents or anything like that. So it was the foster parent and it was me. You know, and I was their go-to for, you know, when they had a bad day, when they, you know, made the baseball team or the softball team or, you know, anything. I was just kind of second mom is the way they said it. You know, so when all of that's just pulled from them and you're not able to say, this is why I can't talk to you anymore at an age like that, that's another trauma for these children. That's another sense of abandonment on these children. And our policy says that, you know, we are to encourage and support any positive attachments that these children have whenever they're in foster care. I don't know why a caseworker is exempt from that, because some of these kids are in care for 3+ years, and that is a positive person for them, you know, to reach out to. Even if they don't go back home to their biological parents, that's still a connection that they had during this foster care journey for them, and they're just taken from them.
Mm-hmm.
And I did have another case, an actual human trafficking case, where that one was, I was kind of threatened on that one being taken from me because of my attachment with this child that was like 12. You know, for more than 2 years, I had that case before I left. And that child was devastated that I couldn't call her anymore and that she couldn't call me. There is no other attachments for her. You know, and
that's the no contact order that came after your 2 weeks. Was that part of? That's
during the 2 weeks, that one.
Is there any? Could you think of any logical reason as to why you were told to, after you've given your 2 weeks, to not have any contact?
I don't know.
Outside of
there
just.
There were 2 other workers that left the 2 weeks prior to me. And we've talked, and they never were told not to contact their people. The kids, the parents, the biological parents, I had numerous biological parents texting me, and I couldn't, on my personal phone, and I couldn't even respond because I feared if I even reach out and say, I can't talk to you, you know, this is what I've been told, that I was going to be the one in trouble for doing that. So I had to just leave it, you know, and not respond. But out of the 3 workers that left around the time that I did, I was the only one that was instructed to not do that.
Well, listen, Ms. McPherson and Dr. Thank both of you. I think for the folks that are watching at home, and whether they're current or former DCF employees or foster parents, you're giving those folks some courage to possibly speak up. And this is in no way, again, in an attempt to remove, replace, discredit agency heads or the department as a whole. These discussions, I think, are helpful in terms of making DCFS better for the kids that they serve. So thank you for giving those folks the courage to testify. Thank you.
Very well said. One quick question, and then we'll turn over to the next panelist. The 5 people that had the exit meeting, and if you're comfortable saying this or if you're not comfortable with this answer, how were the 5 of you guys collectively on a year-to-year basis when you were evaluated by your supervisor? Was it to the standpoint where you received your annual merit raise? Did you get satisfactory evaluations as a group? Was this a group that had problems? Tell us about, if we looked at the personnel files of these people, what would we see?
I know that all of my evaluations that I've looked at since I left, they were all satisfactory. And there's, you know, I have numerous emails that I printed and kept before I left of you know, the I guess, extent of documentation and how clear it was and how much was in there. You know, I don't feel like I was one of those workers that just got by. I didn't just show up to say that I had a job. That was where my heart was before I even got there.
Yeah.
The workers that left around the time that I did were the same way. There was never concerns. There was never write-ups. There was never issues. They were very hard workers that left. And I think most recent, this past Friday, there was another worker that left, just walked out. And to my knowledge, even working with her, there was never complaints about her. And that's the ones that are leaving.
Understood. Thank you so much. Yes, ma'am. Please just state your name and we welcome your testimony.